Hey there, it's Juju, and it's day 114. And today I am going to be talking about Isabel Allende, who is one of my favorite authors. And I just had the honor of seeing her for the fourth time for her new book, which is Isabel Allende. My name is Amelia Del Valle. I haven't read it yet. I'm sure it's going to be great. So the first time I saw there's some funny stories with Isabel Allende. First time I saw her was in San Francisco back in the 90s. So I remember driving up the coast. I was meeting my friend in San Francisco. She was at this bookstore in the Mission, and I'm not very familiar with San Francisco. It was a big thing, and it was just because I was such a huge fan that it seemed like, this big adventure to go see her. So I met my friend. We went. It was this tiny little bookstore, and all the chairs were set out, and we sat right in the front row, and it was like, wow, this is the best. It's going to be so intimate. There was only like two or three other people. I was like, wow, Isabel Allende, the word must not have gotten out. And so then the person who was doing the presentation came in, and we realized that we were at the wrong bookstore, and there was only like 4 or 5 people in the audience, and we were right up front. We had to get up and walk out, and then we walked out, and like a block down the street, you could see people spilling out into the street. They couldn't even fit into the bookstore. It was so funny. So that feeling of when you really think that you've got it made, it could be that you're in the wrong place. So that was the first time I saw her. Then I saw her in 2000. No, there was another time, I think, and that might have been back in the 90s. I saw her at Bookshop Santa Cruz. And at that point, it was so crowded, my friend almost passed out. It was just packed in the bookstore. I saw her at the Capitola Book Cafe, which no longer exists. And then on Sunday, for Mother's Day, I got to see her at the Rio Theater. And she is now 82. I took some notes. So she's 82 years old, as full of life and as beautiful as ever. I just love the way that she is full of fun. She's a feminist. She is a strong woman. And yet she is just so comfortable with herself and is just hilarious and an amazing writer. So she has, she's published over 80 million books in 42 languages. And so it was a Q&A. Someone was interviewing her, and then they had questions from the audience. And one of the questions, how do you keep hope living during a time like this? And she said that if you live long enough, because she's 82, you see that pendulum swing from one side to the other. Now, her history, I think she is Chilean, though she lived in Peru for a lot, and she also she talked about going to Venezuela. And she is related, I believe, the President Allende, when there was a coup in Chile, which was backed by the U.S., we, of course, were on the wrong side. We had a democracy there that we helped overthrow, and that was her uncle. And then Chile went through a horrendous time with many disappearances. So she was talking about the revolution that happened in Chile, which happened in one day, and comparing it to what happened in Brazil, which happened much more slowly. And she compares what is happening in America today to what happened in Brazil, where people weren't really aware necessarily of what was going on as it was happening around them. And so she has seen this, and she has lived experiences. But so what she says, that she has great concern that we get used to what we should never accept. And that would be, for example, the President of the United States accepting a $4 million jet for personal use from another country. I mean, there's so many things that are happening right now as far as citizens' rights that we should never accept. And she says, she compares it, they're using fear and terror just like all of the regimes that she was talking about. But she also says that nothing lasts forever and don't lose hope. She also says we need to party and you need marijuana and screw around as much as you can. Don't hold back. She's very body, and at 82, she still is dropping the F-bombs, and she is just such a classy woman. She talked a lot about being a feminist and how hard it was for her as a woman, as a South American woman, especially, and the limits that are put on her that aren't put on other people. And the hostess there said how amazing she looks, which she does, and she responded with, "Thanks, it takes a lot of money." One of the things that was close to my heart, she wrote a version of Zorro, and she talked about that and said that that was one of the few books or only books where she had to go by, since it's a brand name, she had to, there was things that she couldn't go outside of, the storyline. And she said, for example, I couldn't put Zorro in a tutu. Since I'm Juju of the tutu tribe, you know me, you know how I feel about my tutus, but that really, made me laugh. She talked about Venezuela back when she came from a more staid government. And she also wrote daily letters to her mother, and she has those records. And she's thinking about writing a memoir based on those records. And, I've kept a daily journal since I was 16, but she says it's really helpful to read these letters because you've forgotten 90% of the things, and the 10% that you remember wrong. And I find that that's so true when I'm reading my journals from, 30 years ago. It's like, wow, I wonder what happens next. I have no idea. She said after her mom died, she was going to try and write to her brother, but he is vegan. So correspondence couldn't go on. She talks about a lot of the characters, like in House of the Spirits, is based on her family. And she says, with relatives like that, you don't need to make up anything. So it was like such an honor and inspiration. I mean, after you just spent the hour laughing and hearing about some of, I thought in the beginning I'd read all of her books, but there's some that she was describing that I've missed. So I'm definitely going back to check those out. If you've never read anything by Isabel Allende, I suggest, get on it right away. And again, this is her latest book. And this is Juju, unscripted, unedited, unfiltered, obviously, and lead with love and read some good books.